The dinner with my boy and his wife was supposed to be a good thing, a fresh start after years of nothing but silence between us. I was just sitting there, trying to make small talk, when my cell phone buzzed in my pocket. The message on the screen just about stopped my heart. Get up. Go now. Don't tell your son. My hand shook so bad, I could barely put the phone back in my pants. I didn't argue. I didn't ask a single question. I just did what it said. And that decision, right there, saved my life. Because about a half an hour later, the whole damn place was lit up with flashing red and blue lights, and a bunch of cops were knocking on their front door. Funny how the night had started out so normal. I remember standing in my kitchen, soap bubbles all over my hands, washing my late wife Jane's coffee mug. It was the same one I washed every single night. One plate, one fork, one glass. That's the life of a widower, a quiet routine that you get used to. The light over the sink hummed a low tune, the same one Jane picked out about 30 years ago. She said it made the room feel cozy. It didn't. It just made the quiet feel bigger. I dried the coffee cup real slow, putting it back in the same spot on the rack, like it mattered that it sat there every single night. Maybe it did matter. Maybe holding on to a little bit of order was the only thing I had left. There was a faded picture on the fridge, held up with a cracked magnet. It was a shot of my boy, Mike, on the day he graduated college. He had a big, bright smile on his face, wearing the cap and gown. Jane had her arm wrapped around him, and I was off to the side, trying not to get all teary as I took the photo. That picture stayed on the fridge not because it was perfect, but because it was the last time I remembered us being a real family. Before the yelling, before he kept asking for money, before the silence moved in and stayed. The phone on the wall screamed, and it cut right through my thoughts. I almost dropped the dish towel, grabbing for it as the sound echoed through my little house. The name on the caller ID just about knocked me over. Mike. My son? I just stared at the screen for a good long while. 2 years of not a single word had built a wall between us as big as the Grand Canyon. The last time we spoke, he had stomped out the door after I told him no. He wanted 40 grand for some business idea that sounded like a total bust. I built my chain of 25 auto shops one job and one customer at a time. I wasn't about to give him money for a pipe dream. That night, he called me a stubborn old man who didn't believe in him. That night, we stopped being father and son. But now, his name was on the phone. I picked up the receiver real slow, and my throat felt tight. "Hello," I said, my voice cracking more than I wanted it to. "Dad?" His voice had that nervous sound it used to have when he was a kid and broke something. Not mad, just scared of what I'd say. "It's me." My chest felt like it was closing in. I couldn't talk for a second. "Mike? I didn't think." "I know." He cut me off. "I know it's been a long time. Too long." I could hear him taking deep breaths, like just making the call took everything he had. "But I don't want to waste any more time. Laura and I miss you. We miss having a family." That word family just hung there in the air. I hadn't heard it from him in forever. "I miss it too," I said, and even I was surprised by how honest that felt. "Dad, could you come for dinner tonight? Laura's making that pot roast you love. We want to talk. You know, like we used to." I looked over at the wedding photo on the mantel. Mike looked handsome in his black tuxedo. Laura was beautiful in a white silk dress. Jane was there beside me, all happy and glowing, whispering, "He'll be all right, Al. Families always find their way back to each other." I wanted to believe her. "Tonight?" I said, still in shock. "Tonight," he said firmly. "We've already wasted enough time." His voice got softer. "Thanks for giving us another chance." After we hung up, I just sat there staring at the photo. Jane's smile felt like it was still talking to me. It's time, Arthur. It's time to come home. I got up from my chair with a feeling of purpose I hadn't had in years. I went upstairs, to a bedroom that felt like a museum. Jane's scarves were still hanging over the dresser. Her perfume bottles were still on the shelf, untouched, but I could still smell them. Dust was floating in the light like little ghosts. I opened my closet, my fingers running past my old work shirts until I found the blue suit I hadn't worn in years, still wrapped in plastic. Jane bought it for me the day Mike graduated college. "You need something nice for special stuff," she said, running her hand over the cloth. That suit was with me at anniversaries, job interviews, and finally, her funeral. And tonight, it was going to take me back into my son's life. I looked in the bathroom mirror at a guy I barely knew. There were a lot more lines on my face. My hair was mostly silver now, but my eyes still had a little fire in them, even if it was just a flicker. I shaved real careful, like maybe looking younger could somehow go back in time. Before I left, I opened the drawer of my nightstand. Inside was the pocket watch Jane gave me on our wedding day. "So you'll never lose time with me," she teased. I wound it up, listening to the little gears start moving, and slipped it into my vest pocket. A part of me really believed she was going to be with me tonight. I used the app on my phone to get a ride. The address was in Fairhaven, New Jersey, about an hour away. That's a whole other world from my simple house in Flushing. When the car pulled up, I was holding a bottle of 25-year-old whiskey, a peace offering. The ride was quiet. Streetlights flew by as the city turned into open road, then into perfect lawns and huge houses. Fairhaven was a place where gardeners were always working on the hedges, and fountains shot water out for no one but the people who owned them. When the car stopped in front of a giant house with stone columns, my stomach just dropped. This wasn't the life I thought Mike had. How did he do this? I got out slowly, my shoes making a small clicking sound on the stone path. The front door opened before I could even knock. A woman was standing there, maybe in her 50s, with tired eyes and a simple black dress. A housekeeper. "Mr. Peterson," she said nicely, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm Olivia. Please come in." There was something about her eyes that bothered me. She looked thankful, but also scared. It went away so fast I wasn't sure what I saw. The front room was huge, with shiny marble floors and a fancy light fixture that probably cost more than my house. There were paintings on the walls, and the air smelled like fresh flowers. "Dad?" Mike's voice came from down the hall. He looked like he walked right off a magazine cover, expensive suit, perfect hair, a smile that was too big and too polished. He gave me a hug that was a little too long. "You look great," he said. Before I could say anything, Laura came out. Silk dress, perfect makeup, diamonds catching the light. She kissed my cheek. "Arthur," she said, "finally. We're so glad you're here." I smiled, but all the fancy stuff was starting to get to me. "This place is something else," I said. "How'd you get it?" "Real estate." Mike cut in fast. His laugh sounded empty. "Caught the market just right. Got lucky." Laura linked her arm with mine. "Come on, let's get you comfortable." I gave Mike the bottle of whiskey. His face lit up when he saw the label. "Dad, this is great. You shouldn't have." We walked into a dining room that looked like it was out of a movie. A big table, shiny plates, and silver all lined up perfectly. The light fixture above made everything look warm and cozy. My chair was at the head of the table. Laura smiled at me. "We want tonight to be special to start over." I sat down, smoothing out my suit as I looked around. For the first time in 2 years, I felt a little bit of hope. Maybe Jane was right. Maybe families do find their way back. But then my phone buzzed again, a message from a number I didn't know. The words made my blood turn to ice as I read them. Get up. Go now. Don't tell your son. The same words, just as serious as before. My breath caught in my throat, and my fingers shook, almost dropping the phone. Mike's laugh rang out from across the table too loud, like he was trying to prove something to himself as much as to me. Laura was pouring wine, her movements so smooth, her smile looking like it had been practiced 100 times. They didn't notice how tight I was holding my napkin. They didn't hear my heart thumping. I forced a nod, swallowing whatever I was about to say. "Excuse me," I mumbled, getting up, holding a hand to my stomach. "Too much roast too fast." Mike gave a polite chuckle, but his eyes were sharp, looking at me like I was a deck of cards he was trying to figure out. Laura held my arm for just a second longer than was comfortable. In the hallway, the sound of the dishes and their talking faded away. I leaned against the cool wall, trying to breathe easy. Who sent that message? How did they know I was here? The light over my head was buzzing, and every flicker felt like a warning. All of a sudden, the hallway got blurry, and I was back in a different house, a different time. Jane's laugh came back to me, soft and sure, filling our kitchen and flushing, just like sunlight fills a cracked window. She was baking a pie for Mike's 18th birthday. He came in late, smelling like cigarettes, even though he swore it wasn't him. I remember how he wouldn't look me in the eyes, mumbling about his friends, about how I didn't get it. "He's just a boy," Jane whispered to me later, her hand on my shoulder like she could just make all my worries go away. "He'll grow out of it. Don't be so hard on him, Al." But even back then, I could see that hungry look in Mike's eyes. He didn't want a good meal or a close family. He wanted something easier, something faster. He was always looking for the easy way out, money that came quick, praise you didn't have to work for. I hoped that getting married to Laura would settle him down. Jane even told me on their wedding day, "She's solid. She'll keep him grounded." But looking at Laura tonight, with all that jewelry on and her eyes so calculating, I knew we had both been wrong. I pushed the memory away, but it stuck to me like grease on my work clothes. 2 years of silence had let me imagine that Mike had changed, that he grew up and found out what it was like to really work for something. But the suit, the big house, the practiced smiles, none of it felt right. The clock in the hallway chimed a deep sound that brought me back to the present. I fixed my tie, trying to stop my hands from shaking. I pulled out Jane's pocket watch, its brass smooth from me rubbing it over the years. The ticking was steady, calm. She gave it to me with a smile, saying, "So you'll always know where you stand in time." I needed that more than anything tonight. A voice surprised me. "Mr. Peterson?" I turned. Olivia was standing there with a tray of empty glasses, balanced perfectly. Her eyes met mine for just a second, and even though she didn't say a word, her look said a lot. It was the same look Jane used to give me when Mike was lying through his teeth as a teenager. Kind, sad, but not looking away. "Everything all right, sir?" she asked, a little louder this time. I forced a smile. "Yes, just catching my breath." She nodded slowly, but the way her shoulders moved told me she knew more. Her eyes quickly looked down at my pocket, where I had put my phone. Then she turned and went into the kitchen without another word. Back at the table, Mike leaned forward, his elbows on the table that was so shiny I could see my reflection. "Everything okay, Dad? You look pale." His smile was warm, but there was something else in his eyes, something cold. "I'm fine," I lied, sitting back down. "Just not used to these fancy meals." Laura gave a small laugh. "We'll have to get you used to them. We want you to be here a lot." The words were supposed to be nice. Instead, they felt like chains wrapping around me. For a little while, I just let their voices run together, nodding and answering when I had to. But my mind was back 2 years ago. To the time Mike first asked for money for no good reason. To the way his voice changed when I said no. To the door slamming, the sound of his car tires squealing as he left. I remember Jane that night, too, standing at the window, trying to hide her tears. "You're doing the right thing," she told me, her voice shaking. "We can't keep saving him. He has to learn." But he hadn't learned. He just got better at asking, better at being charming. That memory hit me hard. The perfect pot roast on my plate, the full glass of whiskey in front of me, Laura's careful laugh, Mike's restless fingers tapping on the table. It all felt like a stage play they had practiced 1,000 times. And then it happened again. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I moved my chair just a little and pulled it out under the table. Another message from the same number. "The drink is not safe. Watch carefully. Don't let them push papers tonight." I almost dropped the phone right there. My eyes went to the glasses on the table. Mike's whiskey was half empty. Mine was untouched, a nice amber color catching the light from above. Laura's hand reached for my glass. "You should have a sip," she said softly, like it was an idea, not an order. "It'll help you relax." Mike's laugh followed, too loud, too quick. "Yeah, Dad. It's the good stuff. Nothing but the best for you." The last time I heard that from him was when he was 10, swearing he didn't break the neighbor's window, even though the baseball was still in his hand. I gave a small smile, setting my glass aside. "Maybe later," I said slowly. "I want to take my time." Laura's smile disappeared. Mike's fingers stopped tapping. The silence stretched out for a minute before they started talking again. My mind was running a mile a minute. Someone in this house knew what was happening. Someone cared enough to warn me, and I had a feeling I knew who it was. The ticking of Jane's watch in my pocket was louder than their voices, louder than my fear. I slowly turned the glass in my hand, letting the light from the chandelier hit the amber liquid. It looked like any fancy whiskey, smooth and golden. But when I tilted it just right, I saw something else. Tiny bits were floating at the bottom, like dust and honey. I blinked hard. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe my tired eyes were playing tricks on me. But the text message was still clear in my mind. "The drink is not safe." Laura leaned in closer, her perfume so strong. "Arthur, you haven't touched it. You always liked a good drink." Her smile was nice on the surface, but her eyes looked worried. "I'm taking it slow," I said, setting the glass down. My fingers felt like they were tingling. Mike forced a laugh. "Dad's always been disciplined. That's how he built up his businesses. Right, Dad?" His eyes moved quickly to Laura, then back to me. The way he said it sounded rehearsed, like a line in a play. "Yes," I said slowly, my voice steadier than I felt. "Discipline and trust." "Exactly," Mike said too fast. "Trust is everything, which is why we wanted to talk to you tonight about the future." That word, future, hit me like a hammer. I put my hands on the table, Jane's watch feeling cold against my vest. "Go on." Laura put her hand on mine. Her skin was cool, her nails perfect. "You've worked so hard your whole life. Don't you ever think about slowing down, about letting someone else take over? Succession planning?" Mike added, his smile too wide. "You know, making sure your legacy keeps going." I gently pulled my hand back, keeping my face calm. My chest was on fire. So this was it. The dinner, the roast, the fancy silverware, it was all just a show leading up to this. I kept my voice calm. "My legacy is just fine." Laura's smile flickered. Mike pushed harder. "Dad, we're not saying right now. Just soon. You've got what, 10 garages now? properties all over the place. That's a lot to handle. What if something happened? What if you got sick? Jane's voice came back to me from 10 years ago, whispering in the hospital when Mike crashed her car and begged us to pay for the damages. If we keep helping him, he'll never learn to stand on his own. I looked at my son now, a grown man in an expensive suit, talking with the same begging tone he had as a teenager. Only now, it wasn't about a broken bumper. It was about my life's work. Life is unpredictable, I said carefully, but some things have to be earned. The silence was heavy. Laura took a sip of her wine to hide her disappointment. Mike started tapping his fingers on the table again, an old nervous habit. Just then, Olivia came in, carrying more glasses on a tray. She put them down with hands that were shaking a little. The sound of the glass was louder than it should have been. For just a second, her eyes met mine, then went to my untouched whiskey glass. Then she looked away and went back into the kitchen like a shadow. I wanted to follow her and get some answers, but Mike's voice pulled me back. "You know," he said, trying to sound casual, "Laura's been reading up on power of attorney, just in case something unexpected happens. Families should be prepared." My blood went cold. "Prepared?" I said softly, the word feeling heavy. "Exactly," Laura said, her voice sweet as honey. "So no one else, no lawyers, no strangers ever gets involved. It should all stay in the family." I forced a smile, even though my stomach was turning. "Sometimes outsiders can be very loyal," I said quietly, looking toward the kitchen door where Olivia had disappeared. Neither of them caught what I was really saying. The conversation changed, but my mind didn't. I looked at the table, at the papers sitting next to Mike's elbow, half hidden under a napkin. They weren't menus. They were documents. I could see the edge of a notary stamp on one of them. Laura leaned forward, changing the subject with practiced ease. "Tell us about your shops, Arthur. 10 locations, right? Which one's doing the best?" Her eyes sparkled, but not with curiosity, with calculation. I took a sip of water instead of whiskey, letting the coolness calm the fire in my chest. "They're all doing fine," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Each one has something of Jane in it. Her advice, her touch. They're built on more than just numbers." Mike chuckled, but it sounded empty. "You can find a list of all the names mentioned in the text below, along with the new names I've given them. For the loan, for the people who—" He stopped abruptly, but it was too late. I leaned back in my chair, my eyes fixed on Jane's photo on the wall. "The people who what, Mike?" He didn't answer. "You owe money," I said flatly. "A whole lot of it. And you thought the best way to fix that was to drug your father and steal everything he built. Dad, it's not like that," he said. "It's exactly like that," I answered. His breath quickened. "You don't get it. These people, if I don't pay them, they'll—" He cut himself off again, realizing he'd said too much. I didn't let him recover. "I get it more than you think. And I also know the cops will get it when they see the papers you left on that table. The ones with my name and your signature." There was a sharp gasp on the other end of the line. You didn't—" "I didn't what?" I asked, my voice cold. "Take them? Keep the evidence? Mike, you've always underestimated me. That was your first mistake." The silence that followed was full of panic. I could almost hear the sweat on his forehead. Finally, he snapped. "You can't do this. If you go to the police, you'll ruin me." "No, son," I said quietly. "You ruined yourself." I ended the call, and the click of the phone echoed in my kitchen like the sound of a judge's hammer. The first strike had landed. The rest of the day, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls from Mike. Texts from Laura, all in her fake, sweet tone. We love you. We only want what's best. Please don't be rash. But by mid-afternoon, another number called. I didn't know it. I hesitated, then answered. A man's voice, low and smooth, spoke. Mr. Peterson? Yes. You don't know me. But your son owes us money. A lot of it. And if he can't pay, we'll get it another way. My grip on the phone tightened, but I kept my voice even. Then you should know I've already talked to the police. If anything happens to me, they'll know where to look. A pause, then a chuckle that was all cold and no humor. Smart man. But the police don't always fix problems fast enough. The line went dead. I slowly put the phone down, my jaw clenched tight. They knew who I was now. The net was tightening, not just on Mike, but on me too. That evening, I went to my shop in Brooklyn. My employees greeted me with easy smiles, not knowing about the storm that was coming. I walked into my small office in the back, shut the door, and opened my laptop. I put in the flash drive. Folders opened up all over the screen. Draft contracts, emails between Mike and Laura talking about sedatives, and notes on how they'd take control of everything. Reading their words was like swallowing glass. My son's name, my life's work, all turned into a business deal. Laura's emails were colder than ice. Arthur will give in once he's relaxed. He always does. They thought they knew me. They were wrong. I copied everything to my hard drive, then printed out the worst of it. The sound of the printer was like an engine getting ready for a race, steady and unstoppable. By midnight, I had a thick folder of proof. I put it in my briefcase and locked it. The next morning, I decided it was time to let Mike feel the pressure. I called his number, and he answered right away. Dad, thank God. Listen, about yesterday. Don't bother, I said. I want to talk face to face. At the garage. 10 o'clock. He hesitated. The garage? Yeah. My place. A neutral spot. He was quiet for a long time. Fine. I'll be there. When he arrived, his suit was more wrinkled than usual, and his eyes were red. Laura wasn't with him. He walked into my office, forcing a smile. Dad. Sit. My voice was sharp. He sat down. I opened my briefcase, slowly taking out the papers. His eyes got big when he saw them. Where did you? From your own house. I cut in. From your desk. Don't act like you don't know what these are. His face went white. Dad, I can explain. You can't, I said. What you can do is listen. Because from now on, every move you make will be watched. Every word you say will be important. And if you think you can scare me, remember this. I tapped the folder. I have the proof. His lips trembled. For the first time since he was a kid, I saw real fear in his eyes. Then, in his panic, he said the wrong thing. They'll kill me if I don't pay, he yelled, hitting the desk. Do you get it? You're not saving yourself by doing this. You're signing my death warrant. The words echoed in the small office. He realized too late what he had said. I leaned back in my chair, calm as a statue. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you tried to poison me. His mouth opened, then closed. No words came out. I let the silence hang there until he looked uncomfortable. Then I put the papers back in the briefcase. This conversation is over, I said quietly. Get out. He hesitated, then stood up slowly, his shoulders slumped. For once, he looked smaller than me. As he walked out, I took Jane's pocket watch from my vest, feeling its steady tick. I had landed the first blow, and it hit him hard. The fight had truly begun. The morning sun came in through my kitchen blinds, making pale yellow lines on the table. Jane's pocket watch ticked steadily next to my black coffee, It sounded much calmer than my own heart. The folder of proof was open on the table, pages spread out like a bunch of secrets. I thought the night would bring me peace. It didn't. My phone buzzed before I even finished my toast. A news alert. Brooklyn businessman under investigation for questionable real estate investments. And there, clear as day, was Mike's name. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I knew the police would get involved, but not this fast. Not in public. The story said it came from anonymous sources close to the family. I closed my eyes, and I knew who did it. Olivia, not invisible anymore. She had gone further than I thought. By 9 in the morning, Mike was screaming into my phone. "What did you do?" "I didn't call the newspaper," I said calmly. "But maybe someone who was tired of being invisible finally did. You're ruining me." His voice turned to rage. "Do you have any idea what this will do? The investors will pull out the banks." "Maybe you should have thought of that," I said, "before you signed my name on a fake contract." He swore under his breath. Then softer, "Dad, you're making a mistake. They'll come after you too." "Then let them come," I said coldly. And I hung up. By noon, I was at the shop. The old pickup hummed beneath me like a good friend. The office smelled of oil and dust. It felt normal. Mitch, a former apprentice who now runs his own shop, stopped by. He leaned against the door, his eyes full of concern. "Al," he said, "you okay? People are talking. The word is your boy is in trouble." "Big trouble," I said, nodding slowly. "The word is true." He hesitated, then pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. "I didn't want to get you into this, but you should see this. A guy came to my shop last week asking questions about you, about your health, about your will. Said he was working with Mike." He handed me a business card. The name was new to me, but the logo belonged to a very dangerous loan company. My gut twisted. Mitch's voice got lower. "They're not the kind of people you want near your family." "They're already here," I said. "But thank you, Mitch. More than you know." He squeezed my shoulder firmly. "You need anything, you call me. No matter what." I felt a little bit of hope. An unexpected ally. That evening, I stayed late at the shop, going over every page of the proof again. I highlighted lines, tagged emails, and made copies. If they tried to destroy one copy, 10 more would still be there. But across town, things were falling apart. Olivia called me from her car, whispering, "Mr. Peterson, I have to tell you. Mike and Laura, they're fighting. Bad. She said he's weak, that he got scared too soon. He said she pushed him into it. I heard it all through the kitchen door." I closed my eyes, picturing the scene. "They're breaking," I said. "Yes," she said. "And she's dangerous when she breaks. Be careful." Later that night, as if to prove her point, my phone rang again. It was Laura herself. Her voice was like honey over a knife. "Arthur," she purred, "we've had some misunderstandings. You're a smart man. Let's sit down. Just you and me. Tomorrow." "I'm not interested," I said. Her voice got sharper. "Don't be stupid. You don't want your family dragged through the mud, do you? Think about your reputation. Think of Jane." The mention of Jane was on purpose, a knife meant to cut deep. I took a slow breath before I answered. "Don't you ever use her name again." My voice was as cold as ice. There was a pause, then a hiss. "You'll be sorry." And the line went dead. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat at my table, watching the ticking of the clock and the papers. I thought about Mike as a boy, handing me tools, his face dirty with grease, proud when he got it right. How did that kid become this man? I thought about Laura, smiling at family dinners, putting poison in our conversations long before she tried to put it in my drink. And I thought about Olivia, quiet and overlooked, risking everything to protect me. I realized I wasn't just fighting for my business. I was fighting for the truth, for dignity, for the invisible people who refuse to be invisible anymore. The next morning, my lawyer called. "Arthur, the DA wants to move fast. They'll officially ask for the documents tomorrow." "That means today is your last quiet day." I nodded. "Then today, I get ready." After we hung up, I stood in the middle of my living room, breathing in the quiet. Jane's photo was smiling down at me from the mantel. "Tomorrow," I whispered to her. Tomorrow, they faced the truth. I put the proof in a leather bag, checked the lock twice, and put it by the door. The storm had started, but I was ready to walk right into it. The courthouse smelled like old wood and a cold kind of justice. I pushed the heavy doors open, the bag in my hand, Jane's pocket watch close to my chest. Reporters were everywhere outside, yelling Mike's name and taking pictures, hungry for a big story. But inside, it was quiet. A dozen heads turned as I walked up the aisle. Some probably saw just a tired old man in a worn coat. I let them. They'd see something different soon enough. Mike was at the defendant's table, his face pale, his tie crooked. Laura was next to him, looking perfect, her red lipstick not even smudged. But when our eyes met, hers moved away for just a second. Fear. The officer called the court to order. The judge, a serious woman with silver hair, took her seat. The district attorney stood up. "Your Honor, the state charges Mike Harris with attempted fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to take his father's property and money. Today, we will show not just that they meant to, but that they did it." The words filled the room. My son shrunk in his seat. The DA started showing the proof. The papers, the fake signatures, the emails from Laura talking about sedatives. I watched as each page I had collected showed up on the big screen, the truth finally coming out. Mike's lawyer tried to object, but the judge's hammer shut him down. Then came the first person to talk. "Call Olivia," the room gasped. Mike turned in his chair, his eyes wide. Laura's face got tight, her lips a thin line. Olivia walked forward, holding her purse, shaking a little. But when she raised her hand to swear to tell the truth, her voice was steady. She told him everything. The things she overheard, the night she was told to leave the room, how Laura had gotten the sedatives with a fake prescription. Her words came out like water breaking through a dam. Mike's lawyer tried to attack her. "Ms. Marquez, aren't you just a mad employee who was fired?" She lifted her chin. "Fired? I quit because I wouldn't stand by and watch them try to ruin a man who didn't deserve it." Her eyes looked at me. For the first time in weeks, I gave her a small nod. Then, something happened that no one expected. Laura asked to speak. Her lawyer was whispering to her, shaking his head. But she stood up anyway. "Your Honor," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "I want to work with the state. I have emails, bank records, and messages that show Mike planned everything. I was tricked. I was pushed into it. He's a liar." Mike yelled, hitting the table with his fist. The judge banged her hammer and told him to sit down. Laura kept her eyes on the judge, ignoring Mike. "I have proof, and I'm willing to give it all up in exchange for a lighter sentence." The room was loud with whispers. My son's wife had just thrown him to the wolves. I sat perfectly still. I felt the final piece of the puzzle click into place. The DA showed more proof. Bank transfers from accounts in Mike's name, messages to dangerous lenders, and a voice message where he begged for more time. Every word, every number made the case against him stronger. Mike's defense was a mess. He yelled about loyalty, about family, about being betrayed. but every outburst just made him look smaller. Finally, the DA turned to me. "Mr. Peterson, can you tell the court why you're here today?" I stood up. Everyone was watching. My voice was low and steady. "I'm here," I said, "because my son thought I was weak. He thought he could erase me. But a man doesn't show his strength by how loud he yells or how much he takes. He shows it by what he refuses to lose. My wife's memory, my life's work, my dignity. That's why I'm here." It was silent in the room. Even the reporter stopped writing. The judge's eyes got a little softer for a second before she looked back down at her notes. Finally, the verdict. The jury came back after only an hour. The foreman stood up. "On the charges of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy, we find the defendant, Mike Harris, guilty." The word hung in the air like a church bell, signaling the end. Mike's face fell apart. He shook his head wildly, looking at me like I was going to save him. "Dad, please! You can't let them do this. I'm your son." I looked him in the eyes, calm and steady. "You stopped being my son the moment you tried to poison me." His scream echoed as the police officer pulled him away, the handcuffs making a sound. Laura just sat there, her face a stone, already talking quietly with the lawyers, figuring out how she would get away. The judge banged her hammer. "Court is over." As the room emptied, I sat for a minute, letting the quiet settle in. The bag was lighter now. Justice had done its job. I stood up slowly, the pocket watch feeling warm in my hand. Jane's watch. Jane's time. As I walked out of the courthouse, past the reporters, I didn't say a word. Some truths don't need to be said again. They just stand on their own. The courthouse steps were cold under my shoes as I walked down. Each step felt heavy. Flashbulbs went off. Reporters yelled questions. But I didn't say anything. I just kept walking. The leather bag was empty. My hands were free. The city's cold air hit my face, but inside, I felt warm. Jane's pocket watch ticked in my coat. It wasn't the sound of waiting anymore. It was the sound of moving forward. I drove home in the quiet. The old truck rattled like it always did. But tonight, it sounded different. Not like a burden, but like a loyal friend. When I pulled into my driveway, the light I had fixed last spring was shining bright. For once, I didn't feel like I was walking into a house that was too big for one man. I put my coat on the rack and the pocket watch on the mantel. Jane's picture looked back at me, smiling that quiet smile. "It's over," I whispered. My voice didn't crack. It was just true. The days that followed went by slowly. Mike was held without bail, and the newspapers were full of stories about his downfall. Laura disappeared, and her deals with the lawyers made headlines for a week before no one talked about them anymore. My neighbors looked at me differently now. Not with pity, but with respect. At the grocery store, Mrs. Taylor from down the street touched my arm. "Arthur," she said softly, "you did the right thing. Not many men could have faced their son like that." I managed a small smile. "Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel like winning, but it is." She squeezed my arm. "It is." But the victory wasn't just public. It was personal. Mitch stopped by one afternoon and gave me a set of new keys. "The garage is yours again, Al. Cleared your name this morning. No more problems." I ran my fingers over the cold metal. "Feels like starting over." "Not starting over," he said. "Starting fresh. There's a difference." One evening, as the sun was setting, Olivia knocked on my door. She wasn't carrying a purse this time. There was no fear in her eyes. Just a small tin of cookies in her hands. "I baked," she said shyly. "Thought you might like some." I invited her in. We sat at the table, steam rising from our coffee mugs. She looked around the room at the photos of Jane and the books on the shelves. "You loved her very much," she said. "Still do," I answered. Olivia nodded. "She'd be proud of what you did." I didn't say anything, but my eyes got wet. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. But the real surprise, the one that no court could ever give me, came a week later. A letter came in the mail. It was written by hand, with some ink smudges. Mike's writing? I hesitated before opening it. "Dad," it started, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve to be called your son again. But sitting in this cell, with nothing left, I see now what I became. What I did to you, to Mom's memory, to myself. If there's anything left of me worth saving, it's because of you." I don't expect an answer, but I had to say this. I read it twice, then 3 times, then folded it up carefully and put it inside Jane's Bible, between the pages she used to mark with pressed flowers. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about him. It was about me. And I chose to let the anger go, not to forget, but to set myself free. The next Sunday, I drove to the churchyard where Jane was buried. The wind made a soft sound in the bare trees. I cleaned the stone and put fresh flowers at the bottom. "I thought revenge would feel louder," I said softly. "But it feels like this. Quiet, steady, like finally breathing again after holding my breath for too long." The air was still, but I felt her with me. I stayed until the sun went down. That night, as I locked up the garage, I saw something small on my workbench. A toy car with a rusted wheel. Mike had left it there when he was a boy. I picked it up and held it. For a second, I saw him again, 10 years old, with grease on his cheek, smiling when the engine started after I showed him how. I put the toy back on the shelf gently. Some things you don't erase. You just leave them where they belong. So, this is how it ends. Not with a big fight or a victory party, but with peace. With the sound of a pocket watch ticking in a house that is mine again. With a shop I can call my own, a name that's clean, and dignity that no one can take from me. I didn't win by ruining them. I won by not letting myself be ruined. And as I sit here tonight, with my coffee, I know that revenge doesn't have to be fire and rage. Sometimes, the greatest revenge is silence. The silence of a man who walks forward, free.